Welcome to Prospero's Lost Bookshelf, Episode 4. Bond. James Bond. One of the most recognizable movie book introductions from a character out there. Today we're going to talk about James Bond. And start with Ian Fleming. He came from a wealthy banking family. Probably explains some of Bond's shaken, not stirred ethos and fashion consciousness that we see depicted in the films. Fleming's father was an MP, a British MP. He died in World War One. Churchill even wrote an obituary for him, or an honorarium for him. Like another famed British thriller writer, John le Carré, Fleming had personal experience that he drew on writing his books. He knew what he was talking about in some ways. In 1939, he joined the Royal Navy Intelligence. He even had a fancy little number identifier himself. 17F was Fleming's special number, 007, 17F. It's said that it's pretty obvious that he probably penned kind of the famous Trout memo. It was a kind of just a tack list of ideas of how to befuddle and confound the Germans during the situation, World War II situation. Some of his ideas may have been attributed to Operation Mincemeat, kind of one of the famous ones. At one point, late, like 41 or so, he was assigned to liaise with Wild Bill Donovan and the CIA. One of his plans that it seems like he worked on was called Operation GoldenEye, which we'll all recognize that name if we're a true Bond fan. Fleming's ideas was about terrorism and the Rock of Gibraltar out of Africa, but it went on. It's funny, he even had his own estate in Jamaica that he named GoldenEye later on. He also wrote one kid, other than the Bonds book, he wrote a kid's book, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Thank you, Dick Van Dyke, and all of those animated penguins that you dance with. But anyway, he's pretty much known as the man for the James Bond series. There was 12 of those, 2 collections of short stories. One of the novels and one of the short stories were published posthumously. That included the short story collection, I think was Octopussy. But there was 27 movies have now been made in the oeuvre, starring 7 different people as Bond so far. You never know who's going to be up next. There's a lot of speculation about we're going to have a woman Bond, we're going to have an African-American Bond, or a black Bond, I should say. Doesn't have to be from America. But today, we're going to talk about one of those books, and that is Dr. No. This is the 6th book in the Bond series. Now, as the criticism, of the work and the evaluation of the work, there seems to be 2 ways people generally view the Bond stuff. There's his early work and his later work. Later work kind of starting after Thunderball and beyond. The early work was very much plot and character driven, but by the time you get to Thunderball and the later work, it seems that he had developed his writing craft to the top and is full of description and more arts, language, and writing. The second way it's often viewed of critiquing and viewing the Bond narratives is Cold War, and then the thawing, those written after the thawing of the Cold War. In the Cold War era, he was fighting, what is the name of it? Smersh, I believe it is, was the name of the bad folks, the Russian guys, the evil villains. After that, it became kind of more of a global, almost terrorist organization, Spectre. But the critical attention played to the Bond books went so far as Umberto Eco himself even did quite a bit of a drill down into the Bond legacy narratives and what it all was talking about. But like I said, we're going to talk about number 6, which is Dr. No. And we have here a first edition, but a second impression. Now this edition has the price clip of 13 shillings as a price clipping. And it is a first edition because it starts with From Russia with Love is the last book listed here. We know it's a second impression because the first impressions did not have, and I don't know if we can see it on the camera very well, there's a woman embossed on this cover. The first edition, first impressions did not have that, but this is a first edition, second impression. And I'm going to be honest, it's in really good shape. Again, we have a little bit of damage on some of the edges and corners there, but really a tight, good book in great shape. Would love to have a right home for this. It's the first book that Fleming wrote that received bad criticism. I think that one of the reviewers called it sex, snobbery, and sadism. After that, he sort of began to be more self-conscious of the criticism about him after this book came out. Dr. No, even though it's the sixth book, was the first one turned into a movie with Sean Connery. And again, the villain in this book has a lot to do with Max Romer's villains and Dr. Fu Manchu. But it's a great little book, a first edition, second impression. Still a nice collectible and great, published in England. We'd love to send it home with you. Please reach out at info@prosperosbookstore.com. Attention will. Thank you very much.